To this week's installment of the Sports Hour podcast. I am Dan, and joining me yet again for the third installment of our podcast, we have Blake once more. Say hello.
Hello, guys
All right,
and
so what we are
gals.
going to... Sorry about that. Already stepping over you. My apologies. I'm like AI stepping over Ty Lue in 2001, you know? Oh, everybody remembers that play. That was disrespectful. Anyway, we're not here to talk about AI, even though I love the man. We're here to talk about the Eagles' Week 7 and how that went down versus the Carolina Panthers. And emphasis on down. Things were not nice, to say the least. The Eagles lost 21-17, giving up 21 points in the fourth quarter to the Carolina Panthers, leading to an embarrassing loss. And the team just simply did not close them out. And I think in inspiration, instead of going through player grades and just bashing the whole team, we're going to be starting off one of the segments we generally run in the middle of the podcast this week. Because I'm already angry. So let's get more angry with the Get Angry segment. Are you on board with that, Blake?
I'm very on board with that. Let's get angry.
All right, so the very first thing I think most Eagles fans are thinking, and it was talked about a lot on sports radio in town this week, is this the blame of the offense, or is this the blame of the defense? Not just simply for this game, but for the season. So what is your personal thought, Blake?
Um, it's both. It's both. It's the offense, it's the defense. Howie, we need bodies, but if the defense can't play good, it doesn't matter how good your offense is if the defense giving up 30 points a game.
Yeah, and that's a very diplomatic way of going about it. It is a bit of both, and I can kind of agree with that. Personally, though, obviously it looks bad. Defense gave up 21 points in the quarter. That looks bad. There's also 3 quarters of shutout ball there. So maybe that's them not closing, and I get that. But you've got a MVP candidate from last year at quarterback. You have a wide receiver who we at least think have talent, right? People think Nelson Aguilar is a pretty good receiver. Zach Ertz is still on pace for a numerical year, a statistical year that is never been seen before for a tight end. Alshon Jeffries looked pretty good this year, right? But how does the offense only score 17 and just completely throw a goose egg in both the first quarter, which they've started looking, they almost started looking okay in the first quarter, finally for a first time this year, and they put up zilch in the fourth quarter, and they had that drive at the end where they could have won it all, and they came up well short. They just didn't look good. They looked very out of sync. So I would personally say, at least for this one game, it might actually be the offense more so, as you can't win in the NFL every week scoring 17 points, 20 points. A lot of these games in the NFL nowadays are 28-24, 31-28, 35 something. It's a lot higher scoring league. There's a lot more yardage. There's a lot more passing, a lot more verticality to the game because there's just simply better, faster, stronger athletes than there have ever been. So personally, I think it's more so on the offense. And that kind of gets into my thought about Doug Peterson himself and the way he's calling plays. I loved Doug last year. He was aggressive as all hell, and he really came up with some great concepts. And Eagles fans are going to hate me saying this, but I think he's become the next Chip Kelly. Now hear me out. This RPO thing needs to stop. This was something that was thrown in there heavily for Nick Foles. Carson Wentz is not Nick Foles. Yes, did they do it during when Wentz was playing, having that MVP season? Yes, of course they did. They used quite a bit of it, but they got to find something different or some different wrinkles of it because teams are sitting there at the line. They know what they're going to run play call-wise, and it's just not working out. They've become very predictable, just like the Chip Kelly offense was just a few years back. And you can't win when they know what you're going to do unless your team is that much better physically. And the Eagles this year are not. Injuries have hampered them. And I think there's some guys who are underperforming as well, which doesn't help matters. What's your take on that?
I I agree with you. I agree with you. The offense ain't helping matters. The RPOs need to stop because that was for Nick Foles. It wasn't for Carson. Carson does not need to run RPOs to be good. Carson is naturally good.
I mean, yes, I know RPOs can be a fixture to set things up, but it shouldn't be the entirety of your offense, which it seems like it almost is. It's lots of dink and dunk, lots of RPOs, lots of slants. I mean, how many times this year have we seen Nelson Aguilar catch a ball at the line of scrimmage? Like, 2 out of every 3 targets to the guy, he's at the line of scrimmage. Guy doesn't
Yeah.
have to run routes. It's pathetic.
Yeah.
Absolutely pathetic. So, I heard you make a comment about saying Howie Roseman could have some fault in this and the idea that we need some bodies. What do you think this team could maybe add, per se? As I know you had commented on that.
Okay, so we need bodies. The media and fans around Philadelphia are saying that we need Pat Peterson out of Arizona. Whoever thinks that's a good idea needs to be run out of town. It cripples the entire team. High-tier cornerbacks aren't worth it. Report came out that Philly might send multiple picks for a 28-year-old quarter. Are you screwing with me? Come on, Philly.
And the words of the broadcast crew on Sunday night, "Come on, man!" Which I'm pretty sure that's
Monday
a
night,
Randy
but
Moss
close
line.
enough.
I'm pretty
Monday
sure.
night, but close enough.
Oh, it's Monday. I tried. Yeah, it is what it is. But like, yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, Pat Pete's like a really bad one. Like, 28-year-old corner. He's at the back end of his prime. When he was brought into the league, he was known for being a speed guy, which means, I feel his production might significantly decline if he loses that step that makes him elite. 'Cause he's got that makeup speed, kind of like what we see in Darby, and that's why everybody in this town's all gaga about Darby and says Mills stinks, which I don't buy into. And by the way, Philly fans, this is just the matter of the business. Darby's going to want $8 to $9 million in free agency. Pat Pete, though, the first year, if we take him in, will be about $4.5 million because Arizona's paying that. The next 2 years, up until he's 30, he's going to be making $10 million. Are you going to put $20 million out there for your starting corner duo when you wasted a second-round pick on a guy you're going to be putting in the slot in Sidney Jones in a case like that? No. That is stupid. Like, if you want to do Peterson on the outside with Sidney Jones and or Rasul Douglas in a setup like that, and then maybe move Mills to safety, and then make like McLeod a cap casualty, sure, I get it, because I don't think McLeod's that good, and he's making, $6 million a year. But it's just, it's not, I don't like it at all.
Would you say that if they signed Pat Peterson, that it would be a dumb decision?
I'm going to say yes. And talking about dumb decisions, we were actually in the running also for Amari Cooper.
Yeah. Philly was almost dumb enough to send a second-round pick this year and a fifth-round pick next year for Amari Cooper from Oakland, a deep ball guy who hasn't been decent in 2.5 years, but bust level bad. He doesn't offer much more than Aguilar even, and Aguilar ain't even shaping up. And also, Carlos Hyde went from Cleveland to Jacksonville, so Jacksonville got a decent running back out of that deal because that team's a mess. We'll get to that later.
That's a guy we could have used for sure.
Yeah, but Jacksonville's a mess. We'll get to that later. And Chad Kelly, he went from the Denver Broncos to a county jail cell.
Which might actually be better considering the state of the Broncos, but I digress.
We'll debate that later in the show.
Yes, we will, because guess what, folks? We've been saying it on our Facebook. We've been saying it on our comments in these podcasts. If you give us something to talk about that you want to hear people, debate over, we will more than gladly add it into the podcast. And that was something brought up by one of our viewers, and we thank you very much for the suggestion. All right, so back into some of the other things we can get a little bit angry about here, because my blood is still boiling. Maybe I need to get checked out. I don't know. Maybe I need to see a doctor. maybe see a doctor, maybe the one Derek Barnett's seeing for his torn shoulder, because he's currently on IR. And now we are left with Brandon Graham, who looks like a shell of himself, and Mr. Notepads Bennett on the defensive ends, which is just going to make me cry. Which the only silver lining for that is you might see more snaps for Josh Sweat, the fourth-round pick of the Eagles, who I think is an absolute animal and could be a replacement for Brandon Graham if he gets, the opportunity. But that remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about opportunities, guess who's back?
We brought back Donnell Pumphrey.
Yeah, Shady's not back. It's Donnell Pumphrey on our practice squad. Mr. Bust fourth round pick out of San Diego State. He's back as a practice squad guy. This guy. Why is he oh my god. Why are we bringing in a schlub like him? We need a veteran back. Because Clement obviously is like 70%. And Smallwood is the worst running back in the NFL. He's Trent Richardson bad. Oh my god.
Man, that even calling him Trent Richardson bad's giving him credit.
Yeah, I mean, at least Richardson had like physical tools. Smallwood has like I don't have words for it. Let's just move on from him. I don't even want to think about Wendell's Smallwood, if you know what I mean. But
oh god, I laughed too hard at that.
It was there. It was there. So we've been kind of Debbie Downers so far quite a bit. Where can we be kind of nice? Where can we look for hope? So, in the spirit of it being, Eagles, we have our Silver Linings Playbook.
If you haven't seen that movie, great movie. Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, Danny DeVito. But this isn't a movie review. This is a sports podcast.
All right, so Blake, review some things for us in our Silver Linings Playbook. What are some things that we might, see get better over time? What are some points of hope?
Doug may fix the playbook, and Dallas overpaid for Cooper, but that's just mad jokes.
Yeah, I mean, those are like a couple things that's, we can hope for Dougie to get, his head out of his rear. We can hope that Dallas thing backfires. I think it will, because Dak Prescott's not a throw down the field type guy anyways. And they've already got guys who can kind of run. They just can't run routes or catch, which is kind of the other part of being a wide receiver.
You got to you got to catch the ball, man. Got to catch the ball.
And talking about those Dez Bryant, I don't know if any of you folks out there have seen. There's the picture floating around about Dez Bryant and how they let him go. Because we don't have a true talent, but let's give a first round pickup for Amari Cooper because that makes things better in Dallas. Yeah. And so, and also in talking about trades, Howie might not get this Peterson deal done, which I'm hoping he doesn't. So that's a silver lining for me that it might go through because there's such a short deadline left before the NFL trade deadline is. But if he is signed, the only good thing is that probably means goodbye to Ronald Darby, who I don't like. He's a very low motor player. He's going to want way too much money for being a very crummy player. It's always hurt. I think the corners really this next year should be Mills, Jones, and Douglas. And have Jones and or Mills slide into the slot sometimes to let Douglas play the outside. Because that's the reason Douglas doesn't see the field personally. And I think he's a really good player, Roswell Douglas. And the few times he's been out there, he is a ball hawk. He's good playing the ball. It's just a matter of he's not good at playing the inside. He's better off on the outside for sure. But if they do get the Peterson deal done, we could have like Peterson, Jones, Douglas, maybe Mills a free safety like I indicated earlier. Or you could put Douglas back there because he's naturally a safety anyways. Which could, see getting McLeod out of there, which I'm kind of okay with. Because as much people like to say McLeod's good, he takes bad routes on tackles, and he's not a great cover guy as far as I'm concerned. And also, as I mentioned before, we might have some more snaps for Mr. Josh Sweat, so pray to God he gets some more snaps over Mr. Notepads Bennett.
Notepads Bennett. That's his new name.
Michael
guys.
Notepads Bennett.
Michael Notepads Bennett.
No pads, no sense, please no play.
Just like no shirt, no shoes, no service at Wawa.
Indeed, Reno. Man, I love me some Wawa, and I know you don't have any Wawa anymore out where you live. And I was rubbing that
Yeah,
in earlier today. I was like, yo, man, I got my Wawa gobbler. Hashtag not spons,
yeah.
by the way.
Hashtag not sponsored, but if you're watching,
Yeah, I like me some Wawa, guys. You know, it's what it is.
hashtag not sponsored, hashtag shameless plug.
Hashtag
Okay,
hashtag sponsor me
player
anyways.
grades.
So let's get into the player
Right?
grades. Yeah, let's get
Yeah.
back on track here. Let's not get our heads too stuck in the clouds here, or in this case, in between the toasted buns of an Amoroso roll.
Oh, every single day.
Anyways, so let's start with the quarterback. Wentz. Good stat line. I mean, you look at it for his stat line. We have 30 of 37 for 310, 2 touchdowns. But in the end, he couldn't close it. And also, the variety of weapons he used wasn't too great. I mean, generally, with Wentz, we're used to him using 6 and 7 and 8 different receivers during the course of the game, and he pretty much kept using the same few guys over and over and over again. I mean, if you just look down the receiving chart, Ertz, 9 catches, Alshon, 7, Goddard, 4, Aguilar, 6 for 20 yards, Corey Clement, 2, Wendell Smallwood, 2. Realize, none of the depth wide receivers are on there. No Gibson, no Matthews, no any of those guys aren't showing up there. No third string tight end guy. There's quite a few names that should be on here that played snaps that just didn't do anything. Whether it wasn't them being open or Carson just not having some semblance of a sync with them, I don't know. But there were options out there, I think, and he just wasn't able to really spread out the ball that well. I mean, besides from Jeffrey and Ertz, like, the rest of the roster did nothing for him. He didn't spread the ball. He didn't clinch it in the end. I'm just going to give him like a B- for the game. I know he put up a ton of yards with a high completion percentage, but there are some certain things to really look at in that performance where he was kind of struggling at times. He wasn't absolutely perfect. He wasn't the god that we needed him to kind of be in that game. And I don't think he really kept the troops up and going energy-wise towards the end there to get them back in gear to actually go out there and win that game at the end, because they were playing like they had it, by the end of the third quarter, and they just gave it up and they weren't able to re-engage. And that kind of falls on him. So I'm going to pass off the running backs to you, Blake. You want to go through the running backs real quick?
I'll give him a D.
Yeah, that's kind of fair.
They
Very
all right,
fair.
yeah, they played bad. They were bad. Oh, lordy, they were bad. That they can't run the football, Dan. They can't run the ball, Dan. I mean,
I'm aware they can't run the ball, Blake. I mean, Clement, he had 8 carries, 6 yards. Oh my God, that is bad. Josh Adams,
Yeah,
4 carries for 17. Yet again, Dougie, let Adams play, please, for the love of God. He's the only decent back on a week-to-week basis. Clement's too hurt to play, and Smallwood's absolute aids. Just let Adams play. And then Smallwood, he gets a couple huge holes, and even then for the game, he's 9 carries for 32. And he tacks on 2 catches for 5 yards. Like, no. That's pretty piss poor. So yeah, I completely agree with the D grade. They were bad.
Yeah. Hashtag mad fantasy points. Hashtag not.
Yeah, hashtag all 2 points. Good job. So let's get into the wide receivers. I almost want to split this up by person, per se. It's like, I want to give Alshon an A and give everybody else a D. I mean, I know it's not Aguilar's fault because they're throwing him pretty much screens every play, but 6 carries for 20 yards. That's like 3.5 a catch. That's just brutal. Like, you're an agile,
That's
quick little
bad.
dude. How are you not at least making somebody miss, at least? Like, where is that explosiveness we all know you have? Where was Shelton Gibson? Where was Jordan Matthews? I can't see them. Do I need a new pair of glasses? I don't know, but they're clearly not out there doing anything. So, shame on you, entire receiving core, not named Alshon Jeffrey. Because Alshon
I think they
Jeffrey is
missed
the
the flight.
only decent wide receiver on this roster right now, I think.
Dan, I think they missed the flight to BHL.
Yeah, they might have missed a flight. We might have had, stand-in dummies. Like, I don't know. Imposters out there. Like, I don't know.
Random guys out of the stands just in jerseys. I don't know,
I
man.
think at least one of them would have had a catch, unlike Matthews or Gibson or, some of those other guys. I wouldn't have I
Yeah.
wouldn't be afraid of saying, I don't know, hey, section 202 row 15 seat 8, congratulations, even though you're wearing a Goddard jersey, you're a wide receiver now, have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those guys could have had a catch. I mean, that's just like, if your depth guys, if anything beyond your number 2 wide receiver isn't getting catches in a spread offense in this day's NFL, there's some serious issues going on there, both
Yeah.
schematically
Yeah.
and just simply with your coaching, not getting your quarterback confident in more than 2 wide receivers to throw to. That's just pitiful. So let's move on to
Yeah,
tight
that's
ends,
bad.
which went a little bit better. You have Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert to talk about, who came up with 13 catches for almost 180 yards.
Yeah, I would give them an A minus, which, as you say, 180 yards. Um, Good stat lines, both tight ends, and Zach Ertz continues on his torrid record-breaking tight end pace. Like, if he keeps this up, we're in for some history. Even though the rest of the damn team can't do a damn thing.
Yeah.
We have at least one silver lining in this Doug Peterson playbook, and his name is Zach Ertz.
Yeah, Zach Ertz is kind of just the entire team right now. I wish the entire team
Yep.
played like Zach Ertz, but the entire team is Zach Ertz, which is
Yeah.
not quite the same thing. Um,
Nope.
Moving on, we've got the offensive line. I mean, they've looked better than they have in the last couple weeks, but they still don't look great. I think the changing around back and forth at guard hasn't helped. I still really believe that Jason Peters being in and out and in and out of the lineup has just not helped the team at all. I would almost say after the bye week, instead of using that as a time to rest Peters, just to say install Vitae and just pull the plug on Peters. Because him going in
Yeah,
and
I
out of the
agree with
lineup
that.
really disturbs the chemistry. And an offensive line is a unit. It's a chemistry-based thing. You can't be taking guys in and out, or else it turns bad. Regardless of their skill level, there's some mental chess being played there. If he goes this way, trying to do this move, how do I counter, and how do people around me react? There's a whole bunch if, thans, and buts, and there's a lot more brains going on than simply, I'm big guy, I block. There's lots and lots of thought and deep thought that goes into each and every move. It's a much more complex position than most people would generally give it credit for. So with that said, I initially wrote it down and I wanted to give the guys a C minus, but I'll give them a C plus just because they're not doing awful, but they're really not opening up running lanes, which is one of the things that's really a knock on them for me. They're not just opening holes. I'm not seeing guys being able to get to the second level without fighting off multiple tacklers, and that's just the guys we have out there. They're not superstar running backs. They need a big hole if you want them to actually get some yards. They're not going to help you create. They're not going to make you look like a good O-line. You need to be a good O-line for them. So let's move to defensive side of the ball. You want to take the lead on defensive line there, Blake?
Yep. I'll give him a grade of C. Not super spectacular. They kind of mediocrely do their own jobs. Um, that's really all I got.
Yeah, there's just some guys that are really underperforming this year that we're paying a lot of money. Jernigan hasn't seen the field all year. You know, there's Cox out there who just hasn't really been himself. He's getting double teamed every play. All the depth defensive tackles are hurt. Nada's hurt. They cut, I think it was Qualls they cut last week, or it might have been Vallejo, I forget. It was Vallejo, that's right. And then there's, where's Brandon Graham? He's done nothing all year. You've got No Pads Bennett out there who, you know, Chris Long, who had, what, I believe 8 sacks for us last year, has not done much. Barnett's hurt. I mean, they're stopping their run, sure, but the pass rush, it's just not there at all, and it's leaving the corners out to dry. The linebackers have looked a little bit better in the D-line. I'm going to give them a C as well, personally, though, because there have been some things where they have, you know, had some room for some improvement, and they just haven't really been flashy. I mean, when we first saw a guy like Jordan Hicks come into the league, he was a guy who was a playmaker, fumble recoveries, interceptions. I already thought, wow, this guy's going to be amazing. And that's kind of just gone by the wayside. Maybe it's just, you know, a luck thing. I'm not sure, but I think his play has seemingly dipped, at least statistically this year. Bradham has looked okay, but we're paying him a ton of money, and he doesn't look quite as good as he was last year. And then, you know, we really don't see a third linebacker out there for the Eagles, because they're generally in a nickel set of some sort, or they're running a multitude of safeties. So, I mean, it's hard to really say much about Kamugurje Hill or Nathan Gary when they really don't see the field much.
Yeah, exactly.
So how about you take the lead on defensive backs, and I'll round things out on special teams. How does that sound?
That sounds good. I'll give the D-backs a B-, because given the circumstances with what they have, or rather phrase, don't have, they're playing pretty decent ball for all things considered. Pass rush ain't helping them, so you have to take that into account. But the D-backs are doing good with what they have, and what they have ain't much. And what they ain't doing.
Yeah, considering who they are and the situation they're put in, they're doing the best they really can. They're trying. Kind of agreed. It's like kind of like a B- type deal. Special teams, we see Elliott continue to struggle. We might need to start worrying about his job security. Cameron Johnston, I mean, there wasn't a ton of punting going on, but his punts were solid. Nobody goes woo after the punters. I know punters are people too. I am part of that kind of coalition, but it's been kind of mundane. No big plays really made in return game either. It's kind of just hard to give it anything other than like a C- or a D+. Yeah, like one special teams blunder, but nothing really went extraordinarily well. It's kind of just mundane, which is not common from a Dave Phipp special teams unit, because generally the last few years they've been phenomenal under his coaching. So I don't know what necessarily has changed, but something definitely has. Whether that's him or the players, I'm not sure, but it is what it is. Alright, so we've been talking about the present. So let's talk about the future, maybe the way too extreme future. How about that? Let's go a little bit counterintuitive. How does that sound?
Well, I think we should go over how to improve the now before we go how to improve the future.
Okay, let's take it one step at a time. I like that approach. So the first thing I want to suggest for how to improve the now, and it's kind of a confidence booster type thing. We saw the Eagles let off the pedal this past week against Jacksonville. I mean, not against Jacksonville, against Carolina. Against Jacksonville this week, there must be none of that. I don't care about sportsmanship. Blow them out by 50. Blow the doors off these guys. I want you chucking up vertical 20, 30-yard routes, up 30, 2 minutes left in the fourth. I don't want to see a goddamn run play in that situation. Send a message to the league that you can still be a menace. And it'll get the confidence going in the locker room.
Oh, yeah. Run the kid from Notre Dame. Get Sheldon Gibson more involved in the offense. Call up Braxton Miller. Something to prove that the Eagles are not to be taken lightly. We are the defending Super Bowl champions for a reason. Let's go out there and prove it.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be somebody found to make a difference because maybe there needs to be some kind of spark. Whether it's taking the struggling Jacksonville squad and, laying the wood on them, or finding a guy, like you said, like a Gibson who can get deep, or a Braxton Miller who can get deep. I think they signed him on the practice squad a couple weeks ago. He, at this point, should know the offense to maybe do some stuff. I mean, he was the third wide receiver for Houston most of last year, and he was pretty decent in that role. So yeah, there's stuff like that where we can really consider. I would love to see Josh Adams get some more carries, maybe add a physical edge to the offense. There needs to be a finding of the identity. There needs to be some roles adjusted, and they need to find that inner fire. And I've made comments about this before. There can always be a quote-unquote suffered injury from Jason Peters at some point, something to kind of fluky IR him. Just so they can say, hey, we're not benching the guy, because that just needs to stop. I know he's a vocal leader on the team, but it's just not helping. He should have hung him up at the end of last year. I know he went out in a bad fashion and he wanted one more run, but it's hurting the team now, and I'm just not a fan. And it's hurting the fans' image of him and their minds as an Eagle, which is really sad because he's going to belong in Canton. And the Eagles fans aren't going to maybe love him or appreciate him as much because of this flakiness and this injury proneness towards the end of the career. And yeah. I still say, and I've been saying it for a while, if you're not going to use Adams, trade for a veteran back who can be a bell cow for you. You need somebody who can do that if needed. I know it's kind of the opposite of what I'm saying with the idea of just go blow the doors off somebody, don't let up. But you need to be able to convert a 3rd and 1. I don't trust Clement or Smallwood to do it. You seem to not trust Adams to do it there, Doug. Just get somebody who you trust to do it then. Just find that body. I know he's not necessarily a power back, but Jamal Charles just got cut by the Jaguars. He said, probably, yes, this is my last time putting on an NFL jersey. But if the Eagles give him a call, I think he might be somewhat interested. I mean, there was links to him nearly getting signed by the Eagles 2 years ago before he went to Denver and really didn't do much. Before the Eagles then ended up signing LeGarrette Blount, and we know how that went. Went pretty darn good. So
I didn't even know Jamal Charles was a Bronco. That's like how brief and not impactful he was in that town.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of how it goes. And it was much to the chagrin of Chiefs fans seeing him suit up and then just sit on the bench for that current dumpster fire of a franchise.
Which we'll get into that. We'll get into that later.
We'll get into that a little bit later, yeah. So those are some things I think we can maybe do in the now. And now that we're not getting ahead of ourselves now, how do you see us improving in the future? I guess maybe I'll start off on a couple points and maybe you want to go from there. Is that okay?
Uh-huh.
All right, yeah. Cool. We've mentioned it a couple times before, the idea of getting a running back, a bell cow. Now, I know there's not a ton of bell cow type running backs out there anymore. There's lots of, running back by committees and whatnot. And I don't need a guy who's going to get 25 carries. We don't need the next Adrian Peterson. It'd be cool if we got him, honestly. But a guy who can get, 15 carries a game, be what Ajayi was supposed to be if he wasn't so injury-riddled, that'd be great. Like maybe a power guy. Alabama churns one out every gosh darn year, seems. I don't know who it even is, but I guarantee you he's good and he's probably a power back, just knowing how Alabama works.
Right.
But just something like that. A guy who's kind of beefy, 5'10" to 6 foot, 220 plus, 4'5", 40, decent strength. That's starting to sound a bit like Leonard Fournette. Yeah. But that's like kind of like the mold of running back I'm looking for them to maybe get.
Yeah. I mean, it was to get somebody out of Alabama, but the way this season's going, the Oakland Raiders with the first pick of the NFL draft of Alabama, because that team's also a dumpster fire.
Like, I'm sorry to inform you, but you kind of cut out there, but I know the exact joke that you were going for, so I'll kind of say it there for our listeners. With the first pick, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh, because John Gruden loves collecting first-round picks like they are Infinity Stones for Thanos. that he is going to draft the entire University of Alabama, including Nick Saban himself. It's going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal time.
Yeah, maybe maybe they'll get the Oakland Fire Department to put out that dumpster fire.
Well, they're just gonna,
Or maybe the Las Vegas Fire Department, because we all know they're moving to Vegas next year.
Yeah, they go into Vegas, baby. Just like you are next week for your convention, ain't it? Right?
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, little segue there. So I will be out of the studio next week. I got invited to the SEMA trade show in Las Vegas. If you don't know what that is, it is the biggest automotive trade show in the country. So I will be attending that. So I will be in. I guess I could do a little research among the local Las Vegas folks on what they think of the Raiders coming to Vegas.
Yeah, you could do that, and I will definitely say that a little bit of your stuff got cut out there, but I think they get the gist. Your internet is starting to go a little bit. So, folks, when we say the podcast room, we mean our collective basements roughly 800 miles away. Because technology.
Yep, Dan is broadcasting out of the Philadelphia market, and I am broadcasting, joining him out of the Denver sports market.
I like attaching big cities to these small actual towns we live in that absolutely suck. It makes it sound so much more official.
Yep, because no one knows where the hell our small towns are.
It's like, well, it's that one next to that one. You know where the Burger King is with that one. Yeah, that's 10 miles down that road. That's where I am.
On the corner of Taco Bell and the Oak Tree.
Yeah, the big old oak tree. Everybody knows that oak tree, right? Yeah. Oh, anyway,
right, back on track.
Back on track. So I want to say one more thing real quick. At the end of this season, there are a ton of guys who are going to probably be cap casualties because we need to start shaping up this roster for the impending contracts of a guy like Carson Wentz after the end of next year who will be needing to get paid. So there's a lot of guys right now who make a ton of money, and a lot of them are kind of old. This team is getting old, and they need to get it kind of younger. We made our Super Bowl run. Time to get young so we can actually afford everything again and start having, some more runs at that Lombardi trophy. We need a rebuild on the fly a little bit. I mean, not like a total rebuild. A rebuild's got a bad connotation. A reworking, I guess, does that sound less bad, right?
Retooling? A realignment of team vision, a retooling, a revisioning, an improvement, a team improvement. I wouldn't necessarily use rebuild, but
a not being so damn old. How about that?
Yes.
Okay,
Bring the young guns. Okay.
So here's a list I put together earlier of guys who, at the end of this year, either because I don't want them on this team or because of just salary, I don't think or want them to be on this roster. And they are as follows. Jason Peters, Rodney McLeod, Tim Jernigan, Michael Bennett, that's kind of a personal one, Stefan Wisniewski, Jordan Hicks, Jay Ajayi, Nelson Aguilar, Wendell and his Smallwood, and I don't want to say it, but maybe even Jake Elliott. Some of the rationale on these, Peters, he's making like $14 million a year. You need to get rid of him. Let either Vitae or Mailata fight for that spot, or if you don't want, somebody young on that backside of the blind side of Carson Wentz, you move Lane Johnson over there, put Vitae or Mailata on right tackle, and you're fine as far as I'm concerned. McLeod, he's making $6 to $7 million a year to be clearly the lesser of the two safeties on the backside. We have multiple corners who are trained as safeties, including Avanti Maddox, who's playing safety for us this year, Razul Douglas, who played safety at Wisconsin, and everybody's saying, how about move Mills to safety, because he plays more like a safety anyways. So, that's fine by me. So we can definitely make some, cap room there. You got Tim Jernigan, who's making $10 million this year, hasn't played a damn down. Get him out of here. Michael Bennett making $7 million this year. Get him out of here. Plus, he's a horrible human being. I can't stand him. Stefan
Oh
Wisniewski,
God,
he's
don't
not on a big
get it.
contract, but if you're going to keep swapping him out with Sayamalu, might as well just keep Sayamalu, the younger guy, in there and just let him improve. Jordan Hicks, he can't stay healthy, and now he seems to have had some kind of decline. Get a different guy in there at middle linebacker. Maybe the best idea for him is to move him to an outside linebacker spot and let Bradham play the Mike linebacker. That might fix things. But I can see him maybe not getting re-signed at the end of the year. Jay Ajayi because of injuries, not because I don't like him, because I love the way he runs. And if I could just get, a young him out of college from an Alabama, that'd be phenomenal. Aguilar, I don't see them re-signing at the end of the year. He'll probably ask for $6 to $7 million. And with very, very flashy performances and not always being that great or reliable, I just don't see him staying around. I don't really want him around. Smallwood is just a filler guy. He can go. I don't care. And Elliott this year has been pretty bad. Unless this improves, they need to give somebody to compete with him in camp just to maybe get him to shore up, because he has just not looked good this year. He just really hasn't.
Send him to the Adam Vinatieri School of Kicking, which is Adam Vinatieri's backyard, according to Pat McAfee.
Or we could send them, I don't know, CFL. We could send them, I don't know, anywhere else, just somewhere. Give them something to do. Here's a coloring book and a box of crayons. Go sit in the corner. We'll let the other kicker kick. But is there anybody any position particular you might want to see the Eagles draft with a pretty high pick next year?
There is. I want Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles. I want them to consider the drafting of a defensive tackle to pair with Fletcher Cox. Get him out of the double team. A guy that may be the groundworks for being able to capably move on from Fletcher Cox after the re-sign of Carson Wentz at the end of the 19th season to make the cap room work. It's hard to put a 12 a year to a defensive tackle, but if you can get young at the position and inexpensive, you might be okay. It's becoming less important of a position because defense is now more becoming all about the rush.
It's all about the pass rush, and it's not so much the run stop. That's kind of what I'm thinking, and that's what Jernigan was supposed to be. He's supposed to be that guy to get the Cox out of the double teams. And when Jernigan played last year, Cox was an animal, but this year they're just double teaming Cox, and the defensive ends are just doing jack nothing. So I completely agree with that. And I already said before we could improve in the future, maybe moving Bradham to middle linebacker to counter the run a bit better. And to consider doing something with Nate Gary and Grugier Hill and maybe working on them to get them more on the field. Now, I know this sounds weird because they don't see a lot of the field right now and they're not super standout players. But one thing I'm seeing, and we saw it in the early 2010s with Arizona when they drafted a guy by the name of Deion Buchanan, a guy who's somewhere between a hybrid of a safety and a linebacker, because they foresaw a lot of teams in the future using a nickel set almost as a base set. For those of you who do not know what that is, a base set generally in the NFL will be the 34 or the 43 defense, 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, or 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers. However, a nickel set in the 4-3 setup like the Eagles would have would be 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 3 corners, or 3 safeties, and then either 2 corners, 3 safeties, depending on what you do there. If you want to put a guy in the box, have a safety type player, and to consider a guy like a Grugier Hill or a Nate Gary who played safety in college to be kind of one of those hybrid guys could be an interesting idea to maybe make that happen. Or get the guy who inspired my idea completely altogether, Deion Buchanan, as a guy to kind of be the hybrid in what would be then the base defense, a guy who can get in the box and can cover, which would be a very interesting thing to add. I'd also really not be opposed to seeing more Ertz or even Jordan Matthews as a permanent slot guy. Getting Goddard to be a true tight end. What do you think on that? Because I know Goddard's the better blocker. You think that might be something viable, Blake?
Yeah, I think that would be pretty dang viable, Dan. I would prefer that. I would say you move Zach Ertz or even Jordan Matthews into the slot, open up the tight end spot for Goddard to be the better blocker, and you can kind of build the offense around from that. Because Zach Ertz, the way he catches the ball, he plays like a slot receiver anyway. He's just big. He's a big slot receiver. That is what Zach Ertz is. He is a big slot guy.
And it's almost like a couple years ago in the second round, we drafted a guy out of Vanderbilt who was 6'2", who was a big guy to play the slot. I wonder what his name was. Oh yeah, Jordan Matthews. As I'm sitting here, like, stroking my beard. But yeah, if we
Jordan Matthews for what we drafted him for.
Yeah. After we get him back from Buffalo where he had a kid because there was literally nothing else for him to do up there. Hey. I remember he talked about that in an interview when he came back. It's like there was literally nothing else to do in Buffalo other than each other. The greatest quote of all time.
There's nothing. Oh my, that's awesome.
That's how you get families like the Dugars, my friend, where you got like 18 kids and counting. Nobody's on that freight train.
DRC.
Hashtag DRC, hashtag Antonio Cromartie, hashtag Wild the Cromarties with 15 kids, though. Another thing they could do, maybe on the offense, I know, like, they don't really use Gibson a lot. They don't use Hollins because he's hurt as a deep threat. Do you think they could maybe draft a wideout this upcoming offseason, or not offseason, but yeah, just draft somebody in the next year or two to be kind of like a deep threat? Because clearly, like, Aguilar quite hasn't been that thing, and neither has Mike Wallace because he hasn't played, or Hollins. Do you think that's okay?
Yeah, draft a wideout. If you're no longer okay with Gibson and Hollins, who ran a sub 4.4 to be your decoy, I know it's far-fetched, but what happened to Bryce Treggs? He actually showed in preseason that he had a route tree of more than 3 things that he was competent at.
Yeah, I remember when they first brought him in, and Sports Talk Radio was a buzz. It was, I believe, a late in the year matchup versus the Giants, and the final year of the Chip Kelly era when they brought Treggs in for the first time. And they're like, oh, what routes can he run? What's he good for? It's like, well, he's fresh off of San Francisco's practice squad, and he can pretty much run a deep route in that sense. It's like, oh, wow, that's fun. But in preseason, he looked pretty damn good. I will agree there, for sure. And I wouldn't mind seeing somebody like him brought in to just stretch the field. Now, I know there are Eagles fans last year, it's like, oh, Torrey Smith sucked, yada, yada, yada. But the idea of having somebody who could take the top off, kind of like how we had Deshaun Jackson a few years back, it makes the defense, respect the deep ball a bit more, which is something Carson can throw, for sure. We know that. It makes the safeties play back, which opens up the run. It gives you more space in zone defenses for Ertz to have space to get going. Those are some vital things that we don't quite have. I mean, people for a couple years, and particularly I've noticed on Sports Talk Radio, is that everybody says that Ertz struggles after the cast. It's like, well, yeah, because he's, got safeties right on top of him the moment he turns around. And, maybe something that could fix the issue a little bit. I mean, I don't care if he's getting yards after the catch. I mean, he's still catching everything in his zip code. Like, God, like, nothing can hit the ground. I know they have that commercial on TV where it's, oh, nothing can be dropped by Stephon Diggs. The trash can lid gets stuck to his hands.
Yeah.
Ertz
that's funny.
That in real life. It's not an exaggeration. Like, Ertz is just that ridiculous with his hands generally. I mean, he catches everything. He is always open. His awareness of where zone defenses are and how to beat them is amazing. Something that the tight end position wouldn't have had 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, that's an innate thing that is impeccable about Ertz, the player. Now, here is the moment we have been waiting for.
Well, actually, Dan, before we get to the Chad Kelly debate, I was reading around yesterday and today. What do you think about the Eagles getting on a trade rumor with Tampa to bring Djax back to Philly?
Huh. Well, I mean, he knew the Chip Kelly offense, and he knew the Andy offense. So it's been a while since he's been in an Andy Reid style offense. That's pretty much the same verbiage Doug uses. So I mean, I could see him being able to pick it up quick. So that's not an issue too much. I mean, he is at, I believe, 31 years of age. So I mean, you're only going to get like a year or two out of him. So he would be a short-term band-aid. I wouldn't really see him being here for like more than a year or two. But I think his fire to play would definitely be there because I think he misses being in Philly because he hated the Chip Kelly area. But goddamn, being able to come back and play for Philly and be beloved, I think he would really, cherish that. Because not every player gets to come back home, and I know he's played a couple years in Tampa, but Philly is his home. That's where it all began. That's where he made his big impression on the NFL. That's where he made his biggest plays, his most, important plays. Like Tampa relevancy has been very just low for many years at this rate. I mean, Phil Simms' son, Chris Simms, was the quarterback the last time I think they made the playoffs. That was like, 2006, the last year for Chucky before he got canned there and went to go be Monday Night Football's announcer.
Yeah. All right. So, now that that's out of the way, one of our listeners, Denver area, he posed to me in a Facebook message if waiving Chad Kelly was the correct move for the Denver Broncos. Now, for background on the story, if you don't know, Chad Kelly was recently released by Denver. We alluded to it earlier, Chad Kelly to jail. Well, Chad Kelly was arrested for criminal trespassing. He was drunk off his behind. I mean, this dude was wasted. Drunk off his behind and walked into some dude's house, uninvited obviously, and sat down on his couch. And just sat on his couch. So he was arrested for criminal trespassing in Denver. Then about a day and a half, 2 days later, the Denver Broncos waived him. Chad Kelly, now a free agent. Dan, what do you think? Was the move good or bad that Denver waived Chad Kelly?
Well,
do you think it was a good decision by Denver or bad?
I know you and I both have a joking love for Chad Kelly through our time playing Madden, which makes me almost feel for the guy a little bit. But like, there's certain stupid things that there definitely needs to be ramifications for. And for those of you wondering, why does anybody care? Chad Kelly. Well, related to Jim Kelly, famous Bills quarterback, multiple-time cancer survivor. That's why anybody gives a damn. If this was, Eagles third stringer Nate Sudfeld, nobody would give, two you-know-whats. But with it, Chad Kelly is Chad Kelly. Who was drafted 7th round. I think he was Mr. Irrelevant the year he was drafted. And, I mean, he's the third...
Drafted.
He was undrafted?
He's a rookie. No, he was just drafted. He's a rookie.
Are you sure about that? I'm pretty sure he's not a rookie.
Yeah, Chad.
Google.
No, this is Chad's rookie year.
No way. Am I thinking of a different Kelly?
You're thinking of a different Kelly. This is Chad Kelly's rookie year. Well, it was until he got canned.
He's 24... 2017, round 7, pick 253. He was Mr. Irrelevant.
So, Mr. Irrelevant in the 2017 draft. Drafted by who I'm curious, because he wasn't no Bronco last year.
He was drafted by Denver, but he was on the practice squad.
Okay. So, but yes, there's certain.
So you're wrong. I'm right.
Yeah. Yes. But I agree with you. There are some certain things that deserve ramification for, but is a misdemeanor in the state of Colorado really worth losing your third string job? I mean, yeah, punish him, like suspend him for a few games, but I don't think cutting him was the way to go. I really don't.
Yeah,
because yeah, he's young. He's kind of, you're young. You make dumb decisions. Um, but I think that maybe like some veteran leaders on the team could have maybe helped him out, or like kind of coached him in the right direction with his off the field, or something kind of like a Von Miller type, take him under his wing a little bit and mentor the kid. I mean, he's 24 years old. He's gonna do stupid things. We all do stupid things, and I mean, it could have like there are people that have done a lot worse and that are still playing. So I don't think that the system is very good. I don't think it was the right move by Denver to cut Chad Kelly.
but I think it's different between being a depth quarterback that will probably never see the field and sometimes doesn't even dress on Sundays, versus it being like a guy who had like a checkered past in the NFL, such as Adam Pac-Man Jones, who was a number one or number two corner, kick returner, punt returner, all around big part of the team for Tennessee when he was having troubles there, and then Cincinnati there. It's two completely different things. Like, okay, we can shed him because the Broncos management probably want to see Paxton Lynch get one more chance anyway. It's just another excuse to give Lynch another chance. Anyways, after, he beat him out for the number two job during camp. So, I mean, do I think he should have been, cut? I don't know. I think, depending on how this charge goes, might find himself another NFL home at some point, maybe next year. But that remains to be seen. Sometimes, like little scars like this, when they're, a lot of the quarterbacks are about the same level of competency. Once you start getting to the second and third stringers, a lot of them are very similar. This might be a stain on his record that might keep him from, obtaining that next NFL job, that next NFL paycheck. So it might draw a conclusion to his NFL career, getting drunk off his rear end and going and sitting on some dude's couch. I mean, I would feel differently, and I would feel definitely like, no, he needs to be cut if it was a case of he went into that house and then, like punched a hole in his wall and did this, that, and the other thing. But like, he wasn't necessarily violent. There wasn't any kind of violence to this misdemeanor. So that does kind of, give me a little sense of leniency. But the law is the law. I mean, it's very stupid what he did. It's not just like, oh, I messed up a little bit. I dropped a plate on the floor. It was a little minor oopsie. Oh no, it's hey, I trespassed in somebody's house, and I was lucky that the guy didn't have a 12 gauge and blow my face off.
Yeah, because it's Colorado, so that would happen. It's
exactly
Colorado.
my point. Colorado is the Wild West, but with mountains.
Exactly. They call Denver the Wall Street of the West.
Mm-hmm.
But so
yeah, that's my take. I think maybe it's harsh to cut him, but I think it's the reality that it's justified.
And that quarterback situation's a dumpster fire. Do you think we have time for one more topic that I actually that I saw brought up a couple days ago?
Go for it. I'm fine with talking.
Jared Goff, system QB, yes or no? Colin Cowherd brought this up a couple days ago.
And Cowherd said he was not a system quarterback. And you know how I feel about Colin Cowherd. He is a grade A, genuine, USDA approved idiot. I lose brain cells. I bleed from my nose, my ears, my mouth, and my eyes when I hear this man speak. Oh my dear God. Jared Goff, he's totally the great quarterback that his stats and his winning ways are projecting. Because he totally got it done in the playoffs last year. Looking like absolute junk against the Atlanta team that they should have beaten at their own home. Like, no, you should have beat Atlanta. The Eagles should have never had to play Atlanta in the playoffs last year. You should have done away with them for sure. You lost a home playoff game. That's strike one, to saying maybe you're not ready yet or you're not elite yet. Like Howard, is on about saying, oh, he's great. B, let's look at some of the people around him. And I think the jury might still be out on him for a couple years after this fact. He's been throwing to guys like Brandon Cooks, Sammy Watkins, Cooper Kupp. He's had some amazing offensive lines, including guys by the names of Andrew Whitworth, a long-time vet in this league who's a phenomenal left tackle. You've had a good offensive line in front of you. And you have one of the top 3 running backs in the entirety of the league. A guy so good that if he stays healthy for a while, might make it into Canton and Todd Gurley. And on top of that, you've got a pretty darn good defense that has Aaron Donald on it, Marcus Peters on it, Aqib Talib on it. And you're telling me, oh yeah, this is all because of Jared Goff? Are you kidding me? Carson Wentz has had more career success so far with half the household names on this roster. I mean, the Eagles have a lot of very good players, sure. But to say, Goff is not a system quarterback, I think is a bit silly. He's got tons of firepower around him. I don't think the jury will be fully out until he gets his big payday at the end of his rookie deal and gets like some 110, 115 million over 5 years or whatever. And then we'll see what not St. Louis, LA can actually put around him, because they won't be able to buy all these flashy things to put around them. You're not going to have Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh and Michael Brockers and Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib and Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley and Andrew Whitworth. At least 2 of those guys will probably be retired.
Mm-hmm.
So let's actually see what he can do when he doesn't have a Pro Bowl roster around him.
Exactly. And I mean, I agree with you. He is definitely a system quarterback, because if he wasn't a system quarterback, I mean, Jeff Fisher syndrome. If he wasn't a system quarterback, he would have been at least half decent with Jeff Fisher coaching that team. Now I get Jeff Fisher sucks. I understand Jeff Fisher is a dumpster fire of a head coach. And there's reasons he does not coach team anymore, notwithstanding. But I feel that if he wasn't a true system quarterback, glued to the Sean McVay system and glued to the Pro Bowl roster that's sitting around his dinner table in Los Angeles, that he would have at least had decent success and might have had a winning season with Jeff. Maybe. Because we all know how bad Jeff Fisher is.
Yeah, I mean, we look at Jared Goff and, people are saying, oh, he's a great quarterback and he will always be compared to Wentz because they went 1-2 that year. But like last year, he had 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's not bad. But like 3,800 yards for, if you're trying to say, oh, this guy's elite, all the elite passer, it's kind of like all the cool kids are doing it type thing, are throwing 4,000 a year. He's coming up a little shy of that. They're able to maybe him a little bit because you've got Todd Gurley, who's going to be running, as long as he's healthy, 350 times a year for 1,500 yards for the next 3 or 4 more seasons. That's what Todd Gurley's going to do. You've got guys who can stretch the field in a guy like a Cooks, or they had Sammy Watkins in last year, who can get you 80-yard chunk plays real quick to get that yards per attempt average up real quick.
Yeah.
So there are things like that. I mean, we look at some of the games this year. I mean, he only put up 202 yards versus the 49ers defense, which is not a great one. They put up 200 against bad weather game against the Broncos. Only 233 versus the Raiders opening night. I mean, yeah, sure, he beat up on a couple really bad teams. He put up 350 against the Cardinals. Whoop-de-doo. It's the Cardinals. By game 2, they knew they were dead in the water. He had the one anomaly game against the Vikings, who've been playing like junk on defense this year. He had multiple picks against the Seahawks. The Chargers, I mean, every year their secondary's beating the hell. I mean, this is like the 3rd year in a row Jason Verrett's on IR. So they're always dealing with injuries. So you're going up against banged up secondaries, teams that are trash, teams that are really underperforming. And the only actually solid defense on their list so far of teams they've played are the Seahawks. And he had multiple picks trying to force the ball downfield. So, I mean, so there are some knocks in the armor. I mean, this year we're barely halfway through the year, and he's on pace to have more interceptions than he had all of last year. He's already got 5. He's on pace, I believe, if the math is right, for 11, maybe 12 this year, which is getting to be slightly higher than you really want to see it. Yet his touchdown number is going to be about on pace with what he did last year. And sure, he might have a couple more yards than he did last year, and that's cool and all. But look at the NFC West this year compared to where it was last year. The Seahawks, the Legion of Boom is gone. The Cardinals are a toilet bowl. The 49ers, without Jimmy G, are starting to quit. So you've got 3 just piles of dog you-know-what in that division are going to help him pad his stats, and then everybody say, oh, he's not a system quarterback. It's like saying, maybe it's a bit of a stretch. It's like saying that it's the success of Tom Brady that's gotten them to the AFC East, the Patriots AFC East championship. They're the always ones winning. It's like, no, it's because Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets have stunk for 20 years. It just so happens that Brady's also really, really good. So they happen to be the good team in a crap division. If they were in like the AFC North, they would have actually not won the division a couple of times, And like this is just an example of really make you look better and help you pad your stuff. Golf, pretty average arm. There's nothing really about him I watch him and see stellar. I see pretty decent. Fireworks. Like there's some guys that like you turn on the screen and you see their greatness. I mean, you've seen a couple on teams you've watched over the years. Peyton Manning. You watch him, it's like, wow, that's impressive what he's doing. At times, Russell Wilson is that guy, though I'm really not a big fan sometimes of him. Some of the things he does, amazing. Wentz, Rodgers, Brady at times does some spectacular things. There's guys that make the quarterback position an art, and Goff is just... He's there. He's pretty good. He's in an amazing situation. But I'm not blown away. There are quarterbacks that people relegate to the quote-unquote middle of the pack that could be doing the exact same thing he is right now, given that same situation. A guy like a Kirk Cousins, everybody writes off as a quarterback,
Yeah.
Wow, I was way too involved on that topic.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, because I know you brought that up a couple of days, and I really had to form like a decent thought on that, and that was more than just a thought. That was a novel.
That was a rant. That was a rant.
The rant was due, I just needed to get that out there.
So if you're listening, Cowherd, you suck.
Yeah, man, you suck, man. Yeah, small podcasts picking on the big fish. Let's go, man. God, we're like all the haters of Eminem picking on Eminem, and then he goes and trashes him. God. But like real talk, I mean, it's a dumb.
Like...
Yo, imagine the press on that though. Imagine the press. Like, yo,
imagine the
press. Coward talks about podcast that has like 10 subscribers. Like, yo, what's up? It's your boy.
Yeah, moving on up. But I think that pretty much does it.
Yeah, my voice is starting to go, so I don't know how much more I can talk. Lots of doing stuff outdoors lately, so that talking outside has kind of killed my voice a little bit. I kind of need a drink.
I think that about does it for Sports Hour episode 3.
Yeah, let's do one closing thought here. Prediction for Eagles Jags. Give me a score and give me one sentence as to why.
Let's go with 28-10. Reason being, the Jags are god-awful.
I'm going to go a little bit closer. I'm going to say 24-17. I say the Eagles show a little bit of weakness, but they do look pretty good and end up pulling it out. So, now we finally have our picks in. Let's definitely wrap this boy up. Alright, so for Blake, I am Dan, and we are signing off here on the Sports Hour podcast. Thank you all for listening. Have a good night or day, based off the fact that we are finishing this off at 2:27 in the morning, Eastern Time. Have a good one. And stop broadcast.